I struggled with sleep for a long time, and I tried everything and nothing worked. It would often backfire. I eventually came to the conclusion that insomnia was just going to be part of my personality. That's just who I was. Somebody who didn't sleep and somebody who was anxious and on edge all the time. I eventually had an intervention from my family, which truly marks a very pivotal point in my recovery. And upon having that situation with my family, I started asking myself different questions and I started looking at insomnia a little bit differently. I had tried so much for such a long time that nothing had worked, and I truly started thinking, okay, there must be another way. I'm now fully recovered, and it wasn't easy. It definitely meant quite a lot of discomfort and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, but I made it. And that also means that you can as well, which is why in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down in a more organized way how I did that, how I finally recovered from insomnia, which is also the 4 really key and important layers that I recommend that all of my clients also follow. So if you're watching this and you're wondering whether or not this is it for you and you're just going to always struggle with sleep, I've been there too, and please just don't give up hope. You definitely can and will recover, and let me just show you. The first thing and the most important thing that I did to kickstart my recovery was to educate myself on sleep and on insomnia. Up until that point in which I had the intervention from my family, I had been treating my insomnia as a sleep problem. And it was my sister who actually said to me, "Why do you feel like you need to do all these things in order for sleep to happen? Like normal people don't do that." And I don't know what it was, but in that moment, it all clicked. And I was like, that's true. Like, why am I doing all of this to begin with? And that really sent me down the rabbit hole of understanding how sleep works, which again is a completely passive process and is only regulated by our circadian rhythm and our sleep drive. And everything else that I was told to do has absolutely zero to do with sleep. Medication, CBT-i, which implies quite a lot of controllability around sleep, meditating, breath work, etc. Everything basically treats the symptom, which is sleep, when in reality, I don't have an issue with sleep. I had examples where I had never had a sleep problem before. What had happened was that because I was doing all these things and nothing was working, I was conditioning my mind to believe that not sleeping was a problem. And when we believe something that is a problem or a threat, we're in our sympathetic nervous system. That means that we're in our fight or flight. And this is the opposite state that we want to be in order for sleep to happen. This is the racing thoughts, the heated feeling when you're getting into bed, the constant need to pee. These are all signs that you are stuck in a state of hyperarousal or an excess of adrenaline and cortisol pulsing through your body, which is why you can't sleep. Not because the sleepiness isn't there or because you can't sleep, but because you're getting in your body's way of making sleep happen because you're afraid of what will happen if sleep doesn't happen to begin with. Once I started understanding this, everything started to change. And that is because I had had so many sleep efforts, so much, I guess, associated with trying to make sleep happen. And once I started realizing, wow, sleep is completely not inside of my control. Like, in fact, I need to arrive in a place where I'm not thinking about it. I'm not trying to control it. How can I actually do that? Then I started taking away all of the things that I thought I needed in order for sleep to happen. I took away the sleep restriction. And yeah, upon taking these things away, I felt a lot of anxiety. But I had to trust that I needed to arrive in a place where I acted and was ultimately a normal person. And that meant that I needed less, not more. So number one thing, please spend some time educating yourself and understanding the cycle of insomnia. If you have absolutely no idea what insomnia is, then please go ahead and sign up to my 5 Days to Better Sleep email newsletter, where I will teach you and tell you exactly what insomnia is and also how to break the cycle. So once I understood and educated myself on sleep and insomnia, I also knew that insomnia wasn't a logic problem. That meant that I couldn't just tell myself that I was safe. The education had showed me that I had a fear problem, and the fear problem was rooted in the fear of wakefulness. And because I can't logically tell my nervous system that I'm safe, I needed to show it. Okay, so this is the element of befriending wakefulness, which can often be very confusing. I asked myself the question as to whether or not I needed to do specific activities. Did the activities at night have to be boring? Etc. It can be very confusing. So to break it down simply, I simply had, different mantras or different things that I would say to myself when I couldn't sleep. So number one, I would say to myself, sleep is outside of my control and you can't make sleep happen. So what can you control in this situation? Which is often, what do I do with my time? Do I want to be in bed fighting sleep? It's nowhere to be found. Or can I get out of bed, read a good book, journal, etc.? So that was number one. Number two, I started telling myself that I've been given extra time. Okay, I know we don't want the extra time at 3 a.m. That's a fact, but you've been giving it anyway. And I've worked with a lot of new moms or moms who have very young children, and I often tell them, you probably barely have a moment to yourself. To just see it as time that you have been given. So when you start just changing the dialogue and restructuring that script, you can simply start taking back and claiming back your time and ultimately befriend wakefulness, which is you're doing what you can with being awake as a means of showing your nervous system that wakefulness isn't in fact that bad. So when you stop chasing sleep and you stop fighting it and you start coming back to the things that you like to do, like reading a good book, your nervous system is going to slowly loosen its grip because it's no longer trying to protect you and avoid wakefulness. And when you start doing that, sleep starts arriving and coming to you. And that is because sleep is a completely passive process. This would look different at different points for me. I get this question asked also all the time, did you get out of bed? For me, yes. Sometimes I just would feel so anxious in bed that I needed to kind of interrupt that loop. So I would often get out of bed. I always had a book with me. I always had a journal that I could write down all my thoughts in. And I'm not gonna lie, there were nights in which I would get out of bed 16 times, so many. And it felt like it was never ending. But slowly over time, my anxiety started to fade. I would feel like I would get out of bed less often. I was able to focus more on rest. And just repetitively, I just tried to keep coming back to what I had learned. And yes, I felt it was frustrating. And yes, this journey is so difficult. But I also just started realizing that I had struggled and dealt with so much discomfort, that nothing that I was facing now was any more uncomfortable than the reality of just never recovering. So this is where you also need to trust the process. So trust the process, keep befriending, stop letting insomnia dictate what you do with your life. Keep coming back to living based on who you are and who you want to be. And when you start doing this and keep coming back to what you can control, sleep will correct itself, because sleep is and never has been inside of your control. And it'll actually start coming to you without you having to chase it. Step 3, and I know you will 100% know what I'm talking about, was learning how to deal with the uncomfortable thoughts and emotions. How to stop thinking about sleep all the time, or how to finally be happy, or how to finally accept a sleepless night. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely one of the hardest components of insomnia recovery. And it gets easier when you understand the nature of your thoughts and emotions. I used to ask myself, how can I stop thinking about sleep? And in order for me to stop thinking about sleep, I needed to learn why I was having these thoughts to begin with, and why these thoughts were making me feel uncomfortable. Like the the single thought of what if I don't sleep tonight would send me into a complete spiral. So I started looking into acceptance and commitment therapy, which teaches quite a lot about the nature of our mind, the nature of our thoughts. And I started realizing that these thoughts were being misinterpreted by me. Like I was listening to my thoughts and just accepting everything my brain was telling me, when in reality, thoughts, similar to sleep, are completely passive and automatic. Yes, a lot of our thoughts we can control, but a lot, if not most of our thoughts are automatic. And when it comes to sleep, the reason why we're having uncomfortable thoughts or thoughts associated with sleep is because our nervous system is trying to warn us of something. So these thoughts are signals. They're not flaws, and that doesn't make them reality. What ends up happening when it comes to insomnia is that we push these thoughts away. We distract ourselves. We try and talk back at our thoughts. We're having like a dialogue with our brain. Like, how many of us have laid down in bed at night and said, don't think this, think about this instead, or like think about your wedding day, or think about, I don't know, your time with your family. All of us do this. And we think that we're helping ourselves, when in reality, what we're trying to do, or what we're doing, is we're ignoring the signals that our nervous system is trying to tell us. And when I started realizing this, that I didn't need to pay attention to all of my thoughts, but I needed to kind of welcome them and allow them to be there without reacting, I started creating space for them. That meant, and I've mentioned this in so many of my videos, that meant I needed to spend time listening to what my brain was saying, and then commit to coming back to what I could control. So I became an obsessive journaler. Like, honestly, I would take my notebook, it's literally here with me, absolutely everywhere. I would have it on my bedside table, and whenever I couldn't sleep, I would get out of bed, journal all my thoughts, and then I would read. Or I would, during the day, if I was just thinking about sleep a lot, or I had a little panic attack, I would just write down all my thoughts. I would say to myself, okay, thank you. What are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to communicate? Why don't you feel safe? How can I show you that you're safe? How can I come back to what I can control? So if you're stuck in that loop of not knowing why you keep feeling uncomfortable, just make space for your thoughts and emotions. Just make space to write these things down, and just know that just because you're having these thoughts, it doesn't mean that they're real. Step 4, and the cherry on top of insomnia recovery, which we all struggle with, is to learn to be self-kind and compassionate towards myself. And this, for me, was a very hard and difficult part of insomnia recovery, and it was what 100% would, I guess, trigger different speed bumps, which I will get into. But before we talk about why that's important, let me tell you about how I realized that this was important. So when I was first struggling with insomnia recovery, like way before I even had the intervention from my family, I was having a conversation with a friend. I was crying uncontrollably. I kept asking her, like, I just don't know how long this is going to last. Like, I just wish I knew, like, how can I fix it? How can I don't know, how can I change this situation? And her response like really stuck with me for like forever, honestly. And she said, unfortunately, we don't know how long uncomfortable situations in our lives last, but they last as long as you need to learn the lesson associated with that difficulty. And I was like, okay, what does she mean? Like, what does she mean that there's a lesson with this? And that stuck with me. And I went on to struggle with insomnia for quite a lot longer. And I kept asking myself, like, okay, what is this trying to teach me? And the lesson was how to remove the pressure that I put on myself. And that is the element of self-kindness and compassion. We have so much desire for control, so much desire to be a specific person that we don't recognize, but this lack of self-kindness and compassion towards ourselves is honestly contributing to the reason why we're in insomnia to begin with. And that is because we have high standards as to how we want to show up, how we need to be every single day, how we need to perform. And anything below that standard is a failure. And when we think that we're a failure, we speak negatively towards ourselves, which is why when we struggle with insomnia, we need to get super comfortable with being perfectly imperfect. And in order for us to do that, you need to truly learn to be self-kind and compassionate towards yourself. It took me a very long time to learn this lesson. And I know that so many of my clients struggle with this one as well. But just to simply start asking yourself, and this is what I would do, especially in one of my many journaling sessions, I would ask myself, how can I offer myself some advice, or how can I offer myself some kindness in the situation? Specifically, what would I say to a friend that was struggling with this? And oftentimes I would always come back to, it's okay to have a bad day. Sleep will correct itself. This is just one bad night. It'll pass. Come back to what you can control. If you have 80%, it's still 100%. You know what I mean? So when you start just asking yourself that question of like, okay, what would I tell a loved one? You'll start to realize that that answer is so different to how you've been speaking to yourself. So that's the fourth layer. Learn to be a little kinder and compassionate towards yourself. And once I started incorporating those 4 layers, first education, then really befriending wakefulness, tied with learning how to process my thoughts and emotions, and then really sprinkling a lot of self-kindness and compassion towards myself along the process, I started seeing a shift. And that is because I stopped controlling sleep and I started allowing it. I stopped running away from wakefulness and I started welcoming it. And when you start doing the same, you're signaling to your nervous system, hey, it's okay for you to let go. It's okay, we're safe. And you'll also start realizing that sleep comes to you in the absence of effort. That's all for today's video. I hope that this has in some way supported you in some way. Just please know that you are not broken. You're not doing anything wrong. And if you do have any other questions, comments, concerns, please go ahead and drop those in the comment section below. And I promise to get back to you. Bye for now.